Here we go. We're recording.
Great. Hi guys. Welcome to the community work group first session. So we're taking notes in the doc. Is there a chat in this?
There is a chat, yeah.
Okay, let me just paste the link here just in case for anyone to click it. So we have an agenda. Can we give like edit perms to everyone, or how do you want to do this?
Oh, what was that?
Looks like it doesn't have edit permissions for everyone.
Interesting.
I would probably give comment so people can comment and then we can accept.
That's what I did, but if we want to change it to edit, that's cool too. Or actually Vinod.
I'll add Vinod and everyone I see here.
Okay, great.
Yeah, just okay. So I guess the first bit was, what do we want this community group to tackle? What is our charter? At least I think the mission as I proposed in the email was, we want this group to kind of facilitate how we want to grow the community. So does everyone agree with that mission, or do we want to change the mission or something like that? Does that seem like a reasonable mission to have?
Yes.
Yeah. What was your wording exactly?
My wording was just saying the mission is to grow our community.
Yeah. Totally.
Hopefully in a way that makes us proud. But that's like the addendum. The main mission is just to grow the community bigger than it is today. Sorry, go ahead, Judith.
So the mission in the email says, the mission of this work group would be to figure out ways to grow the size of our community and improve the experience of community members, including users, devs, contributors, and committers, etc. Okay.
There's a lot more content in there than I remembered. Okay. So does that sound good for everyone? Does it seem like a reasonable thing to have? I guess not just growing the size, but also improving the experience for people in the community. We don't want to have a big community with bad user experience as well, I guess. Okay. So for the charter, what should this group tackle? What components and what aspects of the community should we tackle? I'd love to get some ideas before I jump in from people in the channel.
I mean, I think we just need some concrete, actionable items that we can take on that we think will have some tangible impact on those goals, growing the community, improving experience.
Mm-hmm. Do you have some tangible things in mind?
So one thing that James Peach had recommended is doing a regular newsletter.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. He recommended this week in Apache Mesos, something weekly maybe.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how often we might want to do it, but I do think that having just some kind of regular content being presented by the community to kind of advertise just what's been happening, the contributions that have been occurring, it could help people just keep that stuff in mind and remind people of what's going on so that they remember that there's something they're interested in checking out or commenting on, a design doc or some patches.
Yeah, I think that would be great. And we could probably actually also do the newsletter as probably a blog post.
Yeah.
I mean, we are in search of blogs for our website for a long time. And if we have weekly or even bi-weekly cadence of a newsletter kind of blog post there, I think that would be really cool. How would we actually go about building that newsletter? Who would that be? One person responsible to do it, or how would we structure it?
The way I was imagining it was to kind of try to distribute the workload so that maybe all committers could kind of report on the work that they've been shepherding and the things that they've been collaborating with people on, and provide just like quick blurbs of a couple sentences to someone who like aggregates this into a blog post, you know. So hopefully it wouldn't require too much work for any single person.
Okay, so you want that to farm it out to people who like shepherds or committers who are working
Does that
on
sound?
stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's one approach. Another approach might be to rotate it between people, but having a point person might make it more reliable. I was just trying to imagine a way that I would be comfortable with actually do it, you know, because if it's like a big time commitment, then I don't think I or anyone else would want to commit to actually every other week composing some like significant document.
What do others think?
I wonder how much, I wonder if we're envisioning something where we just like send out links to a bunch of things. So each committer says like, I worked on this, here's the link if you want more info. I worked on that, here's the link if you want more info. Or if we're thinking more of like having descriptive content. Because I think that like, how many committers are there?
We have about, I think, 30, but
Yeah.
active are probably around like 15, maybe.
So it might turn into a bit of a laundry list if every committer says what they're working on every week, you know?
Yeah. I don't know if it just like links to things that they're working on. I don't think that would be that useful. I agree. I think we want to call out some, I guess, important things that happened at the end of the sprint or something. I mean, we have a sprint, at least bi-weekly sprint, so we could probably summarize what happened in that sprint at the end of the sprint, or bi-weekly cadence on like, I mean, a bit high level stuff instead of people having to click through to understand what's happening into the links. That would be nice.
Yeah, and it could be up to the person bringing the content together to select what to report on, and not necessarily to include everything. And it's possible that instead of just providing like a link to a Jira or something, the people involved could compose a couple sentences on what they merged and what it does, or what they've been designing.
And the cadence, like, should be like bi-weekly, or should that be even less frequent, or what do you think would be a good cadence?
I feel like starting slow and increasing is probably better than the other way around.
And slow is how slow?
I don't know, monthly? What do y'all think?
Like a monthly newsletter?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think like the balance there is, if you wait too long, there's a lot of content. It takes more time to write that.
Yeah.
And people might even forget what happened like 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And yeah, weekly is probably too much. Yeah, we could either do bi-weekly or monthly. I guess we could start off with that. So we are thinking to have like an editor or some sort that's gonna edit the content and responsible for getting the content from people.
Yeah.
Should that be like a rotating editor, or should that be one person?
I don't know. The problem with one person is that it's a heavier load for a single person. The problem with rotating is that it can fall through the cracks, I feel.
Yeah, I think the person should probably own it. I feel like this would be an easy thing to forget to do.
Yeah.
Let's just here, like, we can divide and conquer. Like, we have 3 person in charge, and they just go around and interview all these committers to ask, like, hey, could you summarize a piece of work you've been working on, like, in the last 3 or 2 weeks, and put them into 2 or 3 sentences. and these 2 or 3 three editors just went around to interview committers and then come back and compose a whole like blog or article. So we can divide the work evenly among these 3 editors, probably.
Yeah, so assign like a constant group of several people instead of just one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it should be the same group of people, I think, so that they could feel ownership of it. I think if it keeps rotating among different people, I think it's going to be inconsistent, for one, like the quality and how they want to do it, and no one will feel the ownership of getting it done.
Yeah, definitely. I meant like 3 just constant people be working in this editor group.
Yeah, I like the idea of the redundancy too. So when people go on vacation and stuff, it wouldn't get lost.
Yeah, cool. So who do we want the creators to be? Who is signing up?
I will sign up.
I would sign up.
Who was that?
Jörg.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. Who else? Jay, I see you're not coming.
Well, I would like to, if you want a Chinese edition of it. I could translate if you want.
That would even be...
That would be really cool.
Okay, sign me up.
Yeah, that would be excellent.
Okay, we peer pressured Jay into accepting. Great.
And what I could even imagine is that we have an open Google Doc where anyone, if he has like a topic, can just input it. And then it's just our task as editors to collect and maybe ping people to write more into this doc.
Yeah.
And then build the final email. So as its community, anyone could contribute to that. Not sure Google Doc is great due to like China, but something like that.
Yeah, we could find some format that works.
Like, are you imagining like a doc which says like, hey, tell me about the progress that you've made in the area that you're working on, or something like that, and then the shepherd is going to just write like a few sentences to summarize?
Yeah. Or anything interesting. So if we have like MesosCon coming up, someone could input something from MesosCon. So just the community effort of gathering input, and then the editor's choice is picking and distilling that input into something presentable.
Yeah, so what is the content going to be? So one thing we talked about is like project status, like what are different projects that are being worked on, and we are going to ask shepherds for status of the projects. And then you talked about MesosCon. Like, what else do we want to see in that newsletter? Is that enough to start with, or do we want other stuff? Like, what are other work groups working on and stuff like that, or is that too much?
I would like to see meetups, for example, in there. Just like what talks are being given at meetups. Then people can also just gather the slides from there if they're posted. Just as it's a community update, keep track of what first is happening in core and what's happening in the community.
Okay, so like the events. So there's thinking about events and projects. Okay, so projects and events. That should be a good start. Let's see how much effort it takes. If it's taking like too much effort, we need to figure out how to like minimize the effort needed by the editors and the people involved to produce content as well, because it's yet another thing that people have to do. So it would be nice if it's less touch. Yeah. Low touch, I guess.
So I just added an action item to the notes for myself to set up an initial meeting with me, Jörg, and Jay, and we can sync on getting that started.
Sweet. Okay. So, did Kapil join already? Kapil said he's trying to get Zoom to work.
Yeah, he's here.
Okay, perfect. So this is an hour-long meeting, right?
Yes, we have an hour.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so the newsletter stuff sounds... Is there anything else you want to chat about for the newsletter? Or are we good? I guess we have like an action item.
Yeah, and we can check in on our next work group meeting to see how that goes. We'll try to meet before the next community work group meeting.
I think we can use this meeting to talk about that. If you don't want another meeting to talk about it, it's totally up to you guys. But we have 1 hour slot, so we could use some time in this meeting to talk about like 15 minutes, 10 minutes, or whatever it takes.
Okay. Yeah.
If you don't want, I mean, yeah, we don't want people to have too many meetings.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I just wanted to talk about like kind of brass tacks of like getting it started. Like, for example, so maybe, I mean, Jay, is using a Google Doc okay? Or should we have some other shared document we could use?
It's okay for me.
Okay. And just in general for like access from China, if we want people to be able to check it out, will that not be an issue or?
Well, if we publish it on the Mesos blog, then
yeah, then that'd be better. And if we're targeting the audiences, like we expect regular audience to read the blog, then definitely the Mesos like website instead of
yeah. I guess I wasn't thinking of the actual publishing of it, but if we're going to have some shared document that people can contribute to, like to add content.
That works. I mean, as far as I know, most of the programs in China will have one way or another. I mean, out of the Great Firewall, so no problem.
Okay, cool. And maybe, we could like, I want to get contributions from any community members who would be interested in talking about like what they've been working on or events they might be aware of, but contacting committers just seemed like an obvious small group of people that we could get a lot of content from. So we could like split the active committers amongst the three of us and each kind of take responsibility for soliciting that subgroup for content in each publishing cycle.
Yeah.
That sounds reasonable. Yeah.
Cool.
I think one thing that might work is for us, for the group to actively work with the committers, like actually pinging the committers for content. And for just contributors, we'll just have the link posted somewhere in the dev list, reminding them to put stuff if they want something to be shown or showcased, basically. That way, like contributors not like actively, we're not reaching out to them person by person. We're just sending a link and saying, hey, put something up here if you want it to be known to the community. But with committers, we're kind of working more closely, actively to get content out of them. Because they are the people who are almost busy. So we want to work with them to get the content out.
Yeah.
Cool. That sounds good. Let's see how that goes. That sounds exciting.
All right.
And we have made more content for the blog post. It's cool.
Awesome.
So what else? So we have the community CI stuff, but before we go to that specific one, what other things should we tackle as part of this? What other things should be part of our charter? So there's a newsletter that we want this group to publish. What else should we be responsible for?
There was once a discussion in the Chinese WeChat group that people are talking about using GitHub instead of review board. And I know it's something big, and just wonder. I just want to collect some thoughts, like what people think about it. Because basically, people are complaining that Apache Way, not Apache Way, but Apache tooling are a bit slow in terms of contributing. Like I have a small fix, I probably just want to send a PR on GitHub, that's it. But I need to go through all these registering for Jira and for review board, set up my local environment, this kind of stuff. I mean, there are people complaining about it. I just want to collect some thought on it.
Yeah, so I remember we said on the doc on the website that for people who want to submit stuff, like small things, it's okay to use GitHub. I don't know. Let me look at the actual wording in the website to see if it's actually how it's written. But that's always been the case that if you want to submit something that's like small enough, you don't need to go through Jira and review board. You can just do GitHub PR. let's see, submitting a patch. Yeah, fixed a bug. We used Apache Software Foundation to track and manage issues. Yeah, it says at the very top, use Apache for code reviews. You'll create blah, blah, blah. Where is GitHub? Okay, it says once you create Jira and review board accounts, create a review or GitHub pull request with an entity for yourself. Yeah, I think we probably want to change the wording a bit here. I think this almost says first create Jira account, then create review board account, and then send a review or a GitHub pull request. Yeah, I think we should change this to basically say, if you have a small patch, you don't need to go through all of this. I think it should be more like, maybe if you are like a beginner, like a newbie into the community, just use GitHub PR because it's likely that you're going to just send something very small. And if you're sending something substantial, please create a review board account and send a review request.
I mean, it's hard to tell like what is big, what is substantial, and that's one thing. Another thing is, I don't know if Apache Foundation has any problem with us using GitHub, or I mean, is there any politics issue with this?
I think ASF, we have to work with them to give us write permissions and stuff. But I know Spark, for example, I think they use GitHub exclusively for their reviews. And it's an Apache project as well. But I think those guys were the only ones that I know of in ASF that use GitHub for reviews. And last when we asked ASF, they said it's like a pilot project that they're trying out with Spark to see if they can have them use GitHub. I mean, that said, even today, we can actually just use GitHub if we want to, because all we don't have is the ability to directly merge PRs into the code, which we don't want to anyway.
Yeah.
So once the PR is accepted, we can still, the committers could still use our tooling, apply reviews tooling to apply the GitHub PR locally and push it, and that closes the PR. So there's an ASF Git bot that goes and closes the PR. So technically, we could still do this. We could today actually have people submit PRs. We do all the reviews, and once it's in a good state, we say it's good, and then we use apply reviews to apply that PR locally and push it into a repo. So that should still work. We don't even have to work with ASF if we really want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, just personally, I'm used to review board already, so I don't really mind. But it's about like improving the use, like contributor experience, right? And I just want to. I mean, I'm really neutral on this point.
Yeah, I think it would be a good use of this meeting to talk about stuff like that, though. Like topics like that, if people do have opinions about, this might be a good place to talk about those. Okay,
so reviews, like review infrastructure, basically. That's
like process questions.
Yeah. Okay, so that should be part of this charter. What else should we be talking about? Like, we don't have to talk about them today, but I just want to get a sense of what are all the topics that we should be interested in. What about CI? Like, should we be talking about how? I think we're gonna have Kapil talking about the community CI stuff, so that kind of already tells me that there's some interest in the people joining this group to talk about how we do CI, how we can improve the CI infrastructure, tooling, and stuff like that. So, is CI something that we should be talking about in this group? Would that help community in some way to have better CIs and better bots and stuff like that? That's going to help them do reviews better and understand their mistakes better.
Well, shouldn't it be a more like proper topic for the other like technical community meeting?
Yeah, I guess the extent to which it improves community experience, it's relevant, but I guess it improves. It seems more like it improves, CI is critical for the experience of like maintainers and committers, but as far as people working on contributions, I guess something like ReviewBot is their primary interaction with the CI system, right?
Yeah. I think when I talk about CI, it's mostly about like the review bot and the build failures when they submit something and the committer commits it, and if it breaks the build, and the build bot is the one that tells them that they broke it, and they kind of have to know that okay, they broke the build because they didn't check this stuff or something, or test this correctly, or didn't do enough repetitions of the test. So that kind of gives them feedback. Like CI gives them feedback on if they do some, like if a contributor makes a mistake, that's one of the ways that they can catch it through CI. And the other thing that I was more interested in the CI was from the perspective that we had a lot of questions from the community previously about having distribution packages like RPMs, debs, and stuff like that, which the project traditionally shied away from producing. So as this working group, we can talk about, should we actually start producing those packages? Should we own that part? Should we upload them officially into Bintray or somewhere like some other projects do, so that it improves the community experience? Because I know that a lot of people have asked for it for a long time, that why doesn't ASF Mesos project itself own and publish binary artifacts? We only publish source artifacts today. And they're always asking, why don't we publish RPMs and debs? So is that something we should own or not? I think that's really important for the community. I think it would be good for us to tackle that.
Is that an Apache thing, or is that a just Mesos thing?
Which part?
Publishing or not publishing binaries.
I think it's up to the project. I think ASF doesn't have any strong stance on it. As far as I know, there are some projects that do publish binaries, like Apache Aurora, for example. I know that. And there are most projects that I know of just publish source, but more and more projects are actually also publishing binaries as well, because it just makes it easy for people to consume. I mean, even when we're getting started, it starts with downloading the source package and building it, which takes like half an hour, which is, I don't think is a great experience for people coming into the project for the first time. I would rather want them to just do a brew install Mesos or apt-get install Mesos from a location, and that's like 1 minute thing, instead of making it build for like 40 minutes and then trying to figure out all the tooling that they need to install to get the build going. I think it's a horrible experience for people coming into the project. I think that gives at least a bad taste. I feel like we should improve that experience for first-time users.
What would be the set of packages we would need to build? So Ubuntu, I suppose, Debian.
Yeah, I think we need to figure that out, what the set of packages we start off with. We start off with a few, maybe, like RPMs and debs, and for certain platforms. And then we can slowly expand it. I think the question is, we need to have people who can own it, for one. And ideally, we should automate it. And that's where I think Kapil is going to talk about how we can leverage CI to automate the building, and what is the infrastructure that we need, and where should that stuff live, and stuff like that. But do we all agree that that's like a worthwhile thing for us to tackle and own as part of this work group, is how to do packaging, for example?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so that's part. So packaging in particular, and we don't want like CI. Like CI is more general, and we don't want that to be like the main thing in the charter.
Yeah, I think it can be relevant, but for the purposes of this group, we should probably focus on the points of interaction between like the general community and the CI, as opposed to like maintainers and the CI. There's like another host of concerns there, I feel.
Got it. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, so we can put packaging in that. So the other thing that I wanted to chat was, do we want like release process to be tackled by this group, or is it something that we need to tackle somewhere else? Like, for example, we have always had questions about slipping release dates, and how do we want to decide when something is a blocker for a release, and are we really doing time-based releases or not, and stuff like that. We had a bunch of discussions in the committers meeting previously. We could keep having those in the committers meeting if we think that's not going to something that really affects the community at large. But that's something that I think affects the community in some way, because that kind of decides the cadence of the releases and stuff like that. That community is going to get from Apache Mesos project. So we can talk about how we can improve our release process, how can we improve the release cadence, and how and stuff like that. Do we think that's like relevant or no? What do you guys think?
I think it's the same as CI. Like if it's a point where the community is interacting with a release, if it's about like how are we going to like estimate dates so that the community can have a realistic idea of when things are going to come out, that's like probably really relevant here. And if it's more about like how committers are going to deal with things or the process of it, I think it might be better for a more technical group.
Got it. But like, what about roadmapping for a release? Should we be responsible for communicating that and making sure that's communicated out and getting feedback and stuff like that? Because that's something we haven't traditionally done a good job of. Like what? Sorry, go ahead.
That might be good content for the bi-weekly or weekly newsletter post.
Mm-hmm.
Like road mapping for a release.
What do you mean precisely by road mapping for a release?
Like what's going to get into a release in the upcoming release or two? What are the features that we're planning to work on? I don't think there's a really good sense on the community until it happens. Like once the release goes out, that's when they see the change log and see, okay, this is all the things that are coming. And we have like a Jira which have some fixed versions, but we don't really do like a good job of like communicating it out. I think like we don't talk about, hey, these are things that we are planning to work in this release or expecting to come to work in the release. I mean, they might not make it, but at least we started off with saying, hey, these are things that we think we should land in this release. And if the other things that you want to have in this release, please add this to the Jira or whatever. At least the way Kubernetes does it, they have like a doc, like a spreadsheet with like features that they want to get in the upcoming release, and the work groups responsible for it and the owners for that particular feature. So they are when the release time comes, the release managers are working with those folks to get updates and do burn-down meetings and stuff like that. I think our releases are a little more opaque to the community, I feel like. So I think making it more transparent would be nice. And I think we as a community group could actually facilitate that to actually communicate via blog post or maybe just an email or with a running spreadsheet, or maybe just use Jira, but have a dashboard in the Jira that tells, hey, these are things that we are planning to work on for the release. Take a look at it. And I mean, since Jira is our source of truth, we might as well use Jira. I don't know why we have to use spreadsheets. I guess Kubernetes have to use because they don't use Jira. That's their way of planning it. But since we use Jira, we could create a nice dashboard that shows based on the target versions what are the big epics that are coming in, and just basically communicate it a little more effectively before the release plan and during the release planning process. Like, hey, these are things that we're thinking we should tackle in this release, and then
Yeah, I think I see 2 points, like 2 different efforts. One is to produce this content, like maybe it's a Jira dashboard, and the other is to get the word out about that. So we could do that. I think we could put that in our newsletter, and we could also send an email. And I think that's a great idea, to let people know ahead of the release what's being worked on, and also get input, and then also announce once a release is out, what ended up landing.
Cool. Okay, so release planning, I guess that should be part of our charter. Is that like a high level bit?
I would call it release communication, maybe. I mean, we as a working group can't determine what's in a release or not, as like the Apache Mesos community working group, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's mostly about communicating about releases. Yeah, like release communication, like before and after, both before it happens and after it. How do we? I mean, I don't think we do a good job about talking about our features in a blog post manner after release. We just paste our change log pretty much into our release blog, which is okay, but it's like a bit not that great. It's not that exciting. So we should also figure out how to work with the shepherds to get those release blog posts for their features that they're working on. I think that has been traditionally been tough because people are not really, like, they don't have time for doing the release blog posts. I mean, they don't even have time to do user docs. Forget even about release blog posts. So that's going to be like a tall order to try to improve that. But I think if we can figure out a process around that, I think that's something that we could do as our group on trying to figure out, hey, if you're working on a feature, this is something that you should do, like just write a blog post, we'll help you write it or something like that. We'll help you edit it or something. Just write it in like 3 paragraphs or something. So basically, release communication around it. That should be something that we could figure out how to improve as part of this working group. Okay, I guess more topics before we hand it over to Kapil to talk about the CI that we should tackle, or do we have enough topics already? Or we could come back to it next meeting and add more topics as well.
York left a message in the chat.
Yeah, whether we should plan in-person community meetings for upcoming Mesos cons.
That would be cool.
In-person community meetings. Yeah, totally. Like this work group community meeting, we'll have. Yeah, I think there's some point raised in the last dev sync meeting was we'll have more face-to-face work group meetings at Mesos cons. I think since this is one of the work groups, I think totally makes sense that we will have this meeting at the upcoming Mesos con. I think that would be great. Okay, let's maybe hand over to Kapil to chat about the community CI stuff that he wanted to chat about on what's happening on that front, what we can expect.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yep. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I didn't expect it to work. Okay, so the CI stuff is fairly straightforward. So as I wrote in the doc, it's 2 main things, and Vinod already pointed to them as well. So one of them is to build the review requests that come up. So whenever some contributor actually makes a contribution and has a review request up, we want to make sure that it builds with all these different combinations that we want to support, like SSL support or CMake or Auto Tools and verbosity and so on. And then also do it on the different distros that we want to support, like CentOS, Ubuntu, and so on. So one of the missing features today in our review bots is the fact that it cannot run root tests. And it has happened in past where some of the contributions were made, they were reviewed, accepted, and merged into master, and then we realized that the root tests are broken. And so this is basically the biggest change that we are hoping to get from this piece of work. So what we would want to do is instead of using containers as we use today for building and building the review request, we would want to use virtual machines. And these VMs will be hosted on some of the newer machines that we will be donating to the ASFCI, which will be Mesos only, or will be used for Mesos builds only. And that way, in those virtual machines, we can basically then use the root tests. The root tests also have the problem where they can actually leave some stale state. So the next test that comes along may or may not actually succeed. And so that's why the idea would be to tear down the VM entirely before running the next build. And of course, in order to improve on those things, we can use Zcash or things like that. And that will potentially help speed up the builds and not actually hog down the whole contribution pipeline by waiting on the review request being built by ReviewBot and so on. So that's basically more or less the idea about around building the review requests in this context. Is there any particular question around here?
So the main benefit for the community is that, as you said, the reviews will be tested on root tests as well.
Yes.
Currently, only non-root tests are tested. So
Yeah.
they have higher test coverage, I guess, larger test coverage.
Yeah, larger test coverage, and this is what we have seen like broken in past. So hopefully, it will actually prevent. Also, like a lot of developers, for example, build on like Mac machines, and there a bunch of Linux root tests cannot be run and so on. So this will basically give a pretty nice coverage.
Got it. And when you said we would donate host machine, that's Mesosphere donating?
Yeah, so Mesosphere is considering donating a few machines to the CI effort, and then it will be like these machines that we donate will be basically reserved in some sense for Mesos only builds.
And these would be like cloud instances, or are these on-prem?
So these will be like EC2 or GC or whatever. Like the details have not been figured out yet, but there will be some cloud machines which will be donated.
Okay, cloud instances that will donate to ASF. Okay. And those get just added to the CI as just Jenkins.
Yeah. So basically, like we will bring them up and set all the infrastructure on the machines, and then like I guess get some authorization keys from the ASF Jenkins and let these guys connect to the something along those lines. I don't know the exact details along those fronts. It's just something that has recently started.
Got it. Okay. And do you have like a rough sense of like the timeline?
That's tricky because this has been going on forever and it pauses and unpauses. So I'm hoping that in the next like order of weeks instead of order of months. I think that's the whole ballpark number.
Okay. Cool. And what about packaging?
So the packaging is more, I guess, like a little more towards the end user, where people have been complaining in past about certain package features not available, or also in general about them being hosted on Mesosphere repos and so on. So the change or the requested change there is that we would want to do twofold things. One is for hosting. So instead of Mesosphere hosting the packages, we probably want to move on to using Bintray. Apache already has a Bintray account, and hopefully we can get an Apache, like a Mesos underneath the Apache umbrella over there. That's a free hosting service that we can use, and basically they also provide the repos, so RPM and Debian repos for different distros and so on. And people already have been using Bintray somewhat, so it kind of is an add-on for them to just add this extra repo from there, like the trusted keys and so on. So you don't have to worry too much about where to get the package from and the URLs and so on. The other piece is like building of the package itself. And right now we are using FPM, which works great but has very little flexibility. For example, Jorg recently figured out that there was a missing Java dependency or some other dependency in the package that we were building, because we did not explicitly tell FPM that this is the extra dependency. And we did not tell because FPM is actually just taking the the install folder and packaging it together into RPM or deb package instead of actually going through the checks and so on. So there the idea would be maybe we actually use the native packaging scripts like spec files for CentOS and so on, or the Debian folder for Ubuntu Debian packages. When we have that, the package is more native. And at that point, you can basically also have a source RPM instead of just having a binary RPM. So if you want to say target a different version of CentOS or a different Fedora version, then you can just use the SRPM and build the package locally and so on. So these are the two major bits in there. The native packaging is somewhat trickier. I was working on it in the winters, and at some point I had it working for CentOS and with partial success for Debian as well, but it wasn't in the polished version. So I think if someone else is actually willing to help, then we will just publish it as is and then actually go it and iterate it from there.
Yeah, I would start with something that works and then we can iterate on top. And my other question was, do we have like tickets for this? Jira tickets already for that people could follow and watch?
I don't think I created any, but I'll have to check in.
Yeah, can you create tickets for the packaging part and maybe even the community CI?
Sure.
So that people could just see that that's happening, and maybe we could include it in the newsletter that comes along, and people can see that, oh, this is happening and these are the tickets, and they could join that effort. And you could also send an email to the dev list saying, hey, is someone interested in helping me out with packaging? And there might be some people who are already familiar with that stuff and who can chip in.
Yep. Also, one of the other things that I should be adding while we are talking about the CI and packaging is the nightly or publishing of the daily jar files. So sometimes we have our protos changed, and then there are other people who are actually taking Mesos off of the trunk. Sometimes would want to actually not build Mesos, like people who are writing the schedulers saying like, I just want to grab the latest jar which has the latest protos and so on. So like automating all of that will basically help quite a bit.
Like snapshot builds basically.
Yeah. So that may or may not be more of a developer work group compared to the community work group here, but
yeah, got it. Okay, cool. Any other questions anyone has with respect to this?
So for CI, actually, since Joseph and Capo are both here, we talk about have Mesos module CI as well. Like you build Mesos against different modules so that we make sure the API doesn't break it. So is that still part of the plan? That's my first question. The second one is, a couple of weeks ago, we had this internally in IBM, they are trying to figure out how to run Mesos on top of Power machine, and they find out the Power CI is disabled, and they actually shoot a message to the mailing list. I don't think they get enough reply. So I
think I replied to them, and I think I enabled it. But there are some tests that are still failing, and I asked the person to actually look into that failures, and they said they are looking into it. But the job is enabled on ASF.
Okay, cool. I probably missed that mail. Thanks.
No worries.
And about the modules part, I think once this part is done, we will basically hook up the. So I think there are a few troubles in there before we actually hook it up. One is that right now we still don't have the full enablement or like a central repository for modules. That was on the plan, but it actually fell through the cracks, and so that basically means that we don't quite know what modules to actually build. So a different approach would probably be to have a different or a separate CI for modules, which actually kicks in, say, nightly or with every Mesos build, and then builds or have some instructions where we actually cat and build the modules and then provide a different failure, but basically leave the review requests untouched for that matter. This should be somewhat orthogonal to the review builds, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think maybe this topic is probably a little more outside of scope of the community working group. I think it's good that we brought it up, but I think we should probably have a different meeting to kind of go into the details, the technical details about the implementation of it. But from the user's perspective, I think what they need to know is there's something that's coming, and this is what they're going to get. And like they're going to get snapshot builds, they're going to get binary packages moving forward, and the project is going to own it. I think that's the biggest piece that they want to know from the community perspective. Does that make sense?
All right.
Cool. So we have like 2 minutes left. So any other things that we should tackle? What's in our charter? So we talked about reviews. We have talked about release communication. We talked about newsletter, which is the biggest thing. What else should we? What about like reviews or Jira, like Jira Kanban board? I think we said we are going to update it during the dev community thing, so maybe we'll keep it there for now. We're going to do like a review about the Kanban board in the dev meeting. Is that something that we should be doing instead as a part of the community group, or is that too developer focused?
You mean the actual maintenance of that Kanban board over time?
Yeah, like the actual updating of it, like going over it every bi-weekly or whatever.
I feel like we need to have, it seems to me maybe the dev community sync would just have more of the relevant people in attendance who are shepherding tickets.
Okay.
Does that seem accurate?
Yeah, I just wonder whether it should be dev community sync or it should be something. Maybe it should be dev community sync. Maybe that's the one that should involve that. Let's keep it with that group for now, and then we'll see if that meeting is going to evolve into something different. In the last 1 minute, what about the timing? Is this time? Does this time work? Do you guys prefer some other time? Some other day?
I mean, this works for me. Another option would be to do something in the evening PST that would also be reasonable, like in Asia for sometime in the morning, right?
Yep.
But that would kind of alienate, I guess, Europe.
Yeah.
Do we have anyone in Europe now?
Well, Jorg was on earlier.
He's coming here.
Uh-huh.
Excited.
I think for me personally, Thursdays are going to be a little difficult. Like this, I mean, this time is probably going to work. My calendar looks okay, but Thursdays are usually pretty hectic. But this particular time slot seems okay for me, but it mostly means I'll be dialing in from home, which is probably okay.
But if you want to postpone this for 1 hour, it also works for me.
I don't think I can postpone it by 1 hour because we have internal sprint meetings. That I guess that happens bi-weekly, and this is this kind of can we do it in a different week than this week? So this is bi-weekly, right?
It can be.
Or is it weekly right now?
I don't think I scheduled it weekly.
Okay. I think we should probably do it like bi-weekly. I think weekly is probably too frequent, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's bi-weekly, my request would be to do it in a different week than this week.
So our next one would either be next week or 3 weeks from now.
Yeah. I mean, for me.
That works for me.
Yep.
Does that work for other people?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So the next thing would be 27th.
Sounds good to me.
Yep.
So I think that week, that alternate probably works better.
Okay.
So if that works for everyone else, we could probably try that.
At the same time, at 8.
Yeah, I think 8 to 9 seems
That
fine.
also puts us immediately before the containerization working group.
Oh, is that also on Thursdays?
Yeah, it doesn't overlap. They're like adjacent. It starts at 9 a.m. PST that day.
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing to keep in mind is that we can't have 2 concurrent meetings happening at the same time. So they won't be able to start until we end. So we would have to end exactly on time every week.
That's perfect.
Good. Great.
So does that work for everyone?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks for taking my request. I guess we are over time by 3 minutes. So, Judith, are you going to send a doc out in an email?
Yes, this is the same document that I sent already. I just took the notes on the agenda doc.
Yeah.
So I can send it out and send out the recording, the link to the recording, and all that good stuff.
That would be great. Thanks for organizing it. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Sweet. In the meantime, if anybody thinks of any agenda items for next week, please feel free to add them.
Sure. Cool. All right. See you guys.
See you.
See you.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye.